Good evening, I'm Ces Oreña-Drilon.
I'm Pauline Verzosa.
And I'm Shawn Yao.
The big stories tonight. The House of Representatives challenges the Supreme Court's ruling blocking the impeachment trial of Vice President Sara Duterte. The lower chamber has also warned the High Tribunal its members, like the VP, can be impeached.
And President Bongbong Marcos is now in India to seal at least 6 deals with the emerging superpower. But sending him off were a live snake and sea exercises in disputed waters between Manila and New Delhi's navies.
And the investigation into flood control projects has begun over at the House of Representatives. It remains unclear, though, if the DPWH Secretary will be taking a leave of absence while such a probe is going on in Congress.
This is not an act of defiance. It is an act of duty. We do not challenge the authority of the court. We seek only to preserve the rightful role of the House, the voice of the people, in the process of accountability.
Finally, the House of Representatives has asked the Supreme Court to reverse its ruling on the impeachment case against Vice President Sara Duterte. This is by way of a motion for reconsideration through the Office of the Solicitor General. In its petition, the lower chamber said Congress should be allowed to perform its duty as stated in the Constitution, that is, to prosecute an impeachable official and for the Senate to try the case. It likewise cited the 1987 Charter, which says the House of Representatives shall have the exclusive power to initiate all cases of impeachment, something Speaker Martin Romualdez insists is a power that is not shared, non-conditional, and not subject to pre-approval. The House is asking the SC not to stand with a certain political faction or another and to dismiss the petitions against a trial for lack of merit. In July, the High Court blocked the ouster case of Duterte, saying it violated a constitutional provision against multiple impeachment proceedings within a single year. The House impeached Duterte in February this year for charges of high crimes, including graft, corruption, and a plot to kill the president. But the Vice President's defense team filed a petition before the SC, arguing that 3 earlier complaints have already been filed against her. Romualdez clarified this.
On February 5, 2025, the House transmitted the 4th impeachment complaint, filed and signed by 215 members, to the Senate. Only after this transmittal did we archive the earlier 3 complaints. The sequence matters. It proves there was only 1 valid initiation, not 4. The court also said the Vice President was denied due process because she was not furnished a copy or given a chance to respond. But nowhere in the Constitution is that required before transmittal. In fact, in all past impeachments, the trial and the right to be heard take place in the Senate. To invent new rules now and apply them retroactively is not just unfair, it is constitutionally suspect.
The Speaker also defended the filing of the motion for reconsideration.
This is not an act of defiance. It is an act of duty. We filed this motion for reconsideration not to provoke, but to protect. Not to assert supremacy, but to restore balances. Because if impeachments can be blocked by misunderstood facts or rules made after the fact, then accountability is not upheld, it is denied. The House will not bow in silence.
Again, Romualdez made it clear the House of Representatives is not defying the Supreme Court, but the Speaker did have a not-so-subtle reminder to the High Tribunal.
To invent new rules now and apply them retroactively is not just unfair, it is constitutionally suspect. Let me say this with candor. A government of laws cannot allow any branch to become the judge of its own accountability. The Supreme Court is a co-equal branch of government. Its wisdom is deep, its authority is real. But its members, like the President and the Vice President, are also impeachable officers.
Meantime, the House of Representatives is asking the Senate to defer any move on Vice President Sara Duterte's impeachment trial. The Senate is set to tackle the Supreme Court's ruling this Wednesday, August 6. Senator Loren Legarda backs the House move, saying the Senate should wait for the High Tribunal's final decision before taking any further action. But Senator Rodante Marcoleta argued that the SC's ruling is already immediately executory and not subject to further motions. Senator Sherwin Gatchalian, for his part, said he has read the decision of the Supreme Court but is inclined to follow the court as the final arbiter.
Meron na, but sorry, hindi ko masabi kung ano, because I don't want to preempt. No, I don't want to preempt. Meron pa kaming 3 days na mag-isip. Ako binasa ko kaagad yung decision, yung 97-page decision. Binabasa ko naman ngayon yung mga concurrent opinions. No? Ako, ang aking prinsipyo is to follow the Constitution. At sinabi ng Constitution natin na ang Supreme Court is the final arbiter. I respect the decision of the Supreme Court. No?
Meantime, Manila Representative Joel Chua rejects the Integrated Bar of the Philippines' backing of the High Court's decision. In a statement issued on August 1st, the IBP said the SC ruling is not just about impeachment nor judicial review, but about safeguarding the very architecture of Philippine democracy. The IBP also issued a warning against efforts to stir public defiance of the tribunal's order, calling such acts as, quote, dangerous erosion of legal order. Chua, however, defended the House's actions, saying the impeachment process remains exclusively within Congress under the 1987 Charter. For its part, the Philippine Constitution Association, or PhilConsa, warns that the ruling undermines the separation of powers. The group says the SC decision threatens the lower chamber's exclusive authority to initiate impeachment, as clearly stated in the Constitution.
Senator Win Gatchalian wished someone would speak to attorney Ernesto Francisco Jr., the petitioner in the landmark ruling on constitutional limits of impeachment proceedings. Well, wish granted, Senator. We speak to the veteran constitutional litigator now. Welcome to the Big Story, attorney Ernesto Francisco Jr.
Yeah, good evening, Ces, ladies. Good evening.
Thank you. It's been a while that we've seen you in the public eye, attorney. Now, what can you say about the Supreme Court decision on VP Sara's impeachment?
I have read the decision several times, Ces, and I am very convinced that it is correct. It is correct because what the Supreme Court did was just to address a grave abuse of discretion on the part of the House. The issue here is that the House of Representatives did not comply with the constitutional one-year bar rule and violated the Supreme Court decision in the Francisco ruling. What the House of Representatives should have done is that after the first impeachment complaint was filed, then the House should have acted right away on it immediately by including it in the order of business, and the House thereafter should have referred it right away to the Committee on Justice. That was not done. It's in the House rules on impeachment that it should be done, but that was not done. So the Supreme Court, it's the duty of the Supreme Court, it's the constitutional duty of the Supreme Court to determine if there has been grave abuse of discretion on the part of the House of Representatives and to correct it. Mm-hmm. And here, there's a clear grave abuse of discretion on the part of the House of Representatives. Mm-hmm. This is not a question of the House following the Francisco ruling. The House did not follow the Francisco ruling and violated the constitutional provision on the one-year bar rule.
All right. Let's go back to the Francisco doctrine, which was initiated in a way which is exemplified by yourself. It pinpoints the initiation of an impeachment complaint when it is referred to the Justice Committee, correct? Correct, attorney?
Yes, filing and referral to the Justice Committee.
Right, but in this case, we heard the speaker say that there was no action on it, and they were archived after the approval by 1/3 vote of the House of Representatives on the 4th complaint. Why is that? What was the where did the initiations begin in this particular case referring to VP Sara?
That's the violation says, because in the Constitution says that the House should have acted immediately even on an impeachment complaint filed by a citizen. That's very important to us because that's the only power given to us citizens to file an impeachment complaint. The House, the Speaker, the Secretary General do not have any discretion to sit on these 3 impeachment complaints. They should have followed the Constitution. They should have followed the Francisco ruling, which is in the House Rules on Impeachment. If you look at page 1 of the House Rules on Impeachment, the Francisco ruling is quoted there in the footnote.
But should this be applied then prospectively? Because they say that they were just following the Francisco precedent, the rules set by the Supreme Court in your case, in the case that you had filed.
But the problem says is that they did not follow it. They deliberately avoided the Francisco ruling by sitting on the first 3 impeachment complaints. And they waited for the 4th impeachment complaint. That cannot be done. They do not have discretion to do that. That's why the Constitution is very strict. It says it should be placed in the order of business within 10 session days and then referred to the Committee on Justice.
But Attorney, that's exactly what the House is insisting they did. They said, pasok naman po sa 10 session days because not every day that they have a session is counted as a session day. Of course, some lawmakers even have also doubted this, but that's how they wrote back to the SC. They even said, oh, some session days were 3 days long, 3 real days long, etc. Yes. So what would you have to say against that, that justification by the House?
The first impeachment complaint was filed on December 2, 2024. It could have been referred to it could have been included in the order of business on December 3. And within 3 days, immediately, not even waiting for 3 session days, referred to the Committee on Justice. That is how it should be. I have done that. I have filed on my own as a citizen. I have filed twice, thrice an impeachment complaint, and I relied on that. That when I file an impeachment complaint, as long as it's endorsed by a member of the House of Representatives, it is the constitutional duty of the House to act on it. Not to sit on it, but to act on it immediately. But here, they had 19 days, not just 10 days. They had 19 days to act on the first impeachment complaint that was filed on December 2, 2024. And I know why they did not act. They skirted the possibility of a hearing because the first impeachment complaint was too long. It contained 24 charges. So they thought that by having by having an impeachment complaint that was filed by at least 1/3 of all the members of the House, they can transmit it to the Senate right away. But there, they are also wrong. Because if you look at the House Rules on Impeachment, and I have it here, it says, Section 2, impeachment shall be initiated by the filing and subsequent referral to the Committee on Justice of, letter C, a verified complaint or resolution of impeachment filed by at least 1/3 of all the members of the House. So this is the House rules. It says that even if it is filed by 1/3 of all the members of the House, it should be referred to the Committee on Justice. Why? Because it is the Committee on Justice who is supposed to determine if the complaint, even if filed by 1/3, is sufficient in form and substance. This was not followed.
But Attorney, help us understand why the doctrine of operative fact does not apply in this case, which essentially states that even while the law or the Supreme Court declares it as null and void, the past actions done in good faith may still be considered valid.
Precisely. it was not done in good faith. There was a deliberate act on the part of the House to sit on valid impeachment complaints filed by citizens and endorsed by members of the House. And worse, those who endorsed these 3 impeachment complaints filed by citizens later signed the 4th impeachment complaint. That's another technicality. You see, we would not have any problem if the House just followed strictly what is provided in the Constitution and in the Francisco ruling. Had they been in good faith, then that Francisco ruling would have been followed, and maybe by this time, Senate is already conducting a trial.
But it's so hard, right, Attorney? Like when you're arguing things like good faith or bad faith, faith is something intangible. And if this is procedural indeed, then how do we, argue it? Because it's something that, like it's so affected by personal biases, etc.
It can be good faith or bad faith can be seen in the sequence of events. All we have to do is examine the facts. And we can see here a deliberate avoidance of the constitutional 1-year bar rule. Don't violate the Constitution. That's basic. And there was a deliberate avoidance of the Francisco ruling. To make it simple, had they followed the Francisco ruling, all they had to do is that when the first impeachment complaint was filed on December 2, 2024, they should have included that in the order of business right away. The Secretary General has no discretion to sit on it. But on the contrary, based on the constitutional provision, the Secretary General is mandated to immediately refer it to the Speaker and to place it in the order of business.
But it did comply. There were 10 calendar days. Session days. 10 session days. Even if there was bad faith, let's just say it complied with what the rules say.
No, Ces, because there were 19 days, there were 19 opportunities for the House to act on it. But what happened was that on the last day, on the 10th session day, February 5, 2025, the Secretary General included all 4 in the order of business, additional reference of business. And the Secretary General read the 4th impeachment complaint
So are
first.
you saying 19 session days?
Not 19 session days. 19 days that Congress House was there.
Oo nga po, pero they are counting session days.
No,
And the rules say session days too, right?
Yes, order of business. But if you will notice, there is such thing as additional reference of business. In fact, these impeachment complaints were included in the additional reference of business, which were taken up outside of those 10 session days, but within 90 days from December 3 up to February 5, 2025. What I'm saying lang is this, that they could have acted swiftly on the first impeachment complaint.
So are you saying that the Supreme Court decision, because other legal luminaries are saying it sets aside the Francisco precedent, it's no longer the existing rule to follow, but this new decision by the Supreme Court, which sets new conditions?
There's no inconsistency, Ces, because the Francisco ruling is still very valid if given that same set of facts. Now, this is another set of facts that the Supreme Court has to interpret because it has to, it's the arbiter, it has to decide. Take note. Before the Francisco ruling, there is no provision that an impeachment complaint is deemed initiated upon referral to the Committee on Justice.
Yes.
I placed that in my petition.
Right. It made this clear.
I questioned the rules. And then the Supreme Court decided, interpreted the Constitution and says, it's from the filing and referral to the Committee on Justice. Nobody questioned that. Nobody said the proponents of the impeachment complaints then so many members of Congress did not say that, hey, don't apply that to us retroactively. They did not question because they know they are lawyers. Many of them are lawyers and they know that the Supreme Court, what the Supreme Court did was right. And do you know what they did? They revised the House rules on impeachment and adopted the Francisco ruling. That's why in the House rules on impeachment, at the footnote mentioned the Francisco ruling. So what's the problem now? The Supreme Court is just interpreting a new set of facts.
Okay. Attorney Francisco, to your point, do you think the Supreme Court also considered the fact that House Secretary General Velasco also gave an interview, a TV interview at that, where he said, well, he was asked, why did you not refer this sooner? And he said, because some House members asked me to hold on because may hinahabol pa silang isa pang complaint. So things like that factored into the Supreme Court decision, you think?
Yes, you can see that in the footnotes, but that shows bad faith. And that shows that you cannot invoke good faith. And the Secretary General of the House is not even mentioned in the Constitution. He has no discretion. Even the Speaker of the House has no discretion to sit on an impeachment complaint or not to act on it. It's the House. It's the action of the plenary.
What could have been the proper process? Should they have referred all to the Justice Committee and they could put them all together into one complaint, combine all these 4 complaints? Could that
in the Francisco ruling, there's a portion there that says that when the impeachment complaints are in the Committee on Justice, they can be consolidated.
Yes.
That's in the Francisco ruling. Although I personally disagree with that, no? Because this is first to file and referred to the Committee on Justice.
Kaso attorney, meron ding mga sham complaints di ba? Na you can be the first to file, and then initiation starts and you're stuck with a complaint that cannot prosper.
Yes, but look at it this way. The Constitution provides that a citizen may file an impeachment complaint based on grounds enumerated in the Constitution and endorsed by a member of the House of Representatives. The presumption there is that a member of the House of Representatives or members, many members, will not endorse a sham complaint. There's a presumption of regularity there.
Well, Attorney, what happens now? Because the House of Representatives has already filed a motion for reconsideration. How likely is it for you that a unanimous ruling could be reversed? And the Senate will also be tackling this in 2 days. Can they proceed? Because there's no TRO naman from the Supreme Court.
Well, it is the right of the House of Representatives to file a motion for reconsideration. That's part of due process, no? Now, as to the Senate, I do not want to preempt what the Senate will do on Wednesday, but this is all in accordance with procedure that the House at the first instance should have followed.
If this is so, and if the motion for reconsideration is not granted, then the recourse is just to file another complaint, as the Supreme Court had indicated, next year in February. Are the dates correct? Because there's also also a back and forth about the dates.
Not later than February 6, 2025, 2026. That's in the Duterte decision, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
But you agree also with the dates because other commentaries have pointed out that the count should not begin in February, but December.
I think the rationale there, Attorney, was, well, if you're counting that the first impeachment as it is, then it should be that we can file a new case on December 3, 2025, because that's more than a year from when the first citizen filed impeachment was happened.
In the Francisco ruling, there are 2 components, no? Filing by a citizen and action of the House. It was when it was on February 5, 2025, when the House, acting as a plenary, did not act on the first three impeachment complaints, that they are deemed dismissed. In fact, even the word archiving, it's not in the rules of impeachment. It's not in the rules on impeachment. That's even a violation. There's no such thing as archiving an impeachment complaint. So when the House as a body did not act on the first three impeachment complaints on February 5, 2025, they were deemed dismissed at that time. So the counting of the one period starts there.
All right. When they, in a way, archived or referred or put in the order of business.
No, when they did not act.
When they did not act.
Speaking of
The
archiving,
the archiving, that's actually has no place in an impeachment because it's not in the rules. When they did not act on the first three impeachment complaints at inuna nila yung fourth impeachment complaints, in effect, they dismissed that first three impeachment complaints.
okay, so dapat walang archiving. The term shouldn't even have appeared.
No, that's in the rules of
All
the
right.
House for resolutions.
Now let's discuss the other features of the Supreme Court decision, which says that the VP was also deprived of due process because she was not given a copy, which some luminaries see as an additional procedure. What do you say about that?
With all due respect, says that is wrong. That is wrong because the House rules on impeachment provide that already. What the Supreme Court did was only to lay it down clearly, step by step. What's my basis for this? The House rules on impeachment, the Francisco ruling is incorporated in it. There's notice, hearing. That's the essence of due process. And lastly, and very important, it says on the last page, rules of procedure. The rules of court shall, as far as practicable, apply to impeachment proceedings before the House. What is the rules of procedure? That's the rules that govern all court proceedings. And almost all rules, every rule in the rules of court provides for due process. Filing of a complaint, filing of an answer, period when to do certain things, that is due process. That is not new.
Right, but the naysayers, attorney, would say, this is only quasi-judicial, this is more political, and maybe what the Supreme Court has done with this ruling is to make it actually more judicial than political in nature. What would you have to
More
say?
difficult.
More difficult too, yeah.
Impeachment in layman's language is a unique proceeding. But it is also subject to constitutional provisions all over the Constitution. And a primary of that, principle of that is the Bill of Rights. They cannot say that the impeachment proceedings is not subject to the Bill of Rights. Every step of the impeachment proceedings should be subject to the Bill of Rights. And this is not just the right of the respondent to be heard. It's more important, the right of the complainant to be heard. I have been a complainant a number of times, and I know how it feels when I am not heard by the House.
Well, attorney, at the same time, speaking of right to be heard, some of the critics say that the Supreme Court made a rushed decision. They didn't hold oral arguments despite the weight of this case. So as they revisit this decision after that motion for reconsideration, do you think they should be holding oral arguments this time?
I don't want to preempt what the Supreme Court will do with the motion for reconsideration. In fact, I don't want to go into the merits of the motion for reconsideration. That will be improper for me.
Now, let's just revisit when you filed this petition with the High Court in 2003. This concerned impeachment complaints against Justice Davide.
Yes.
Yes. What made you go to the High Court?
I was familiar. Modesty aside, I was very familiar with the rules on impeachment because prior to November 2001, there is no issue as to that as to when an impeachment proceeding is deemed initiated. It was my impeachment complaint that triggered that. That when I filed a second impeachment complaint, the House changed the rules. So I knew that the House changed the rules to bar a second impeachment. Unfortunately for the House at that time, they used it when a second impeachment complaint was filed against Chief Justice Davide. And since I knew the rules and I felt that I was also a victim of these rules, I immediately drafted a petition and filed Francisco versus House of Representatives. Many petitions followed, but if you will examine the ruling, it was my petition that questioned the House rules, and the Supreme Court invalidated the House rules. The petition of the Integrated Bar of the Philippines also questioned the House rules, but it was patterned after my petition.
Okay. So you're saying the House does not have the leeway to change its rules to suit its power to initiate impeachment proceedings?
The Constitution says the House has the power to initiate impeachment cases, not impeachment proceeding. There's a distinction there.
Yes, cases.
What the Constitution says merely is that an impeachment case should initiate from the House. And if it's a valid impeachment and it does not violate the one-year bar rule, the House should file it, transmit it to the Senate. It's as simple as that.
All right. Well, we thank you so much in the flesh, Attorney Francisco, who is now known as the Francisco ruling. Thank you so much for sharing your insights.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to other news. President Bongbong Marcos has arrived in India for a 5-day state visit, expecting to close 6 agreements with a potential superpower. The president's plane landed in New Delhi at 4:50 p.m. Manila time. Marcos will be in India until August 8, where he is set to meet with the country's top leaders, including Prime Minister Narendra Modi. According to the Foreign Affairs Department, both countries are expected to sign agreements covering the fields of law, culture, and science and technology. President Marcos will also be meeting with the Filipino community and with business leaders in New Delhi and Bangalore, particularly those in the IT sector. This is the chief executive's 36th foreign trip since taking office, and it comes as India and the Philippines celebrate 75 years of diplomatic relations. Prior to Marcos's departure, the Philippine and Indian navies conducted formation drills at sea replenishment and monitored Chinese warships near the Philippines' exclusive economic zone. And just hours before the president's flight, a snake was caught slithering around Villamor Air Base. An Air Force personnel was bitten but is now in stable condition. The reptile was immediately contained, with Air Force Chief Lieutenant General Arthur Cordura giving assurances that this incident is not a cause of concern.
We're just going to take a quick break, but coming up, one senator who was a former DSWD chief wants the Social Welfare Centerpiece Project, 4Ps, scrapped. We have the details of that when the big story returns. Keep it here on One News.
You're watching the big story here on One News. The House Committee on Public Accounts has begun its inquiry into flood control projects. DPWH Secretary Manny Bonoan gave a briefer on all flood control and drainage projects in the country. Bonoan specifically stressed the huge discrepancy in the budget they requested last year to the actual budget approved by Congress. In particular, they requested 4.3 billion pesos for flood control projects in 2025 but was only given over 1 billion pesos. Some congressmen, however, were displeased because they think Bonoan made the presentation look like a budget hearing. Others even said there was too much focus on flood control when it's actually solid waste that must be managed.
Hindi ba ito budget hearing eh? We didn't even hear kung what happened during the last bagyo. And we know for a fact, alam na naman natin kung ano yung mga tinatamaan ng baha eh. But this is quite unusual. Ilang bagyo na tayo na malalakas, alam na natin, Marikina tatamaan, sa Quezon City tatamaan, Caloocan tatamaan. Yun ang gusto natin madinig. Ano yung naging course of action natin? Hindi budget presentation.
Punong-puno na ng basura, burak, yung mga natural waterways natin. Yung natural waterways natin, bukod sa punong-puno na ng basura, there are 646 families, informal settlers, living on top and beside of our natural waterways. Yan po yung problema, hindi yung flood control programs. Ang pangunahing problema, yung solid waste management.
Meanwhile, Bonoan is yet to say if he will take a leave of absence, as Bacolod Representative Albi Benitez suggested. That's until the investigation on flood control projects is over. The DPWH Secretary earlier said he will wait for President Bongbong Marcos's order and he will not take it personally in case the instruction is to temporarily pull out of the post. Meanwhile, Surigao del Sur 1st District Representative Romeo Momo defended himself after he was mentioned by Baguio City Mayor Benjamin Magalong as among lawmakers receiving kickbacks from flood control projects.
This should pass through the Provincial Development Council and then to be submitted to the regional office for them also to present this to the Regional Development Council. Ibig sabihin, yung mga proyekto na nilalagay nila for inclusion in the next budget ay dumaan sa scrutiny ng Provincial Development Council at the Regional Development Council. So ganun kahigpit ang pagpili ng proyekto ng isang distrito.
Let's discuss this with Caloocan City 2nd District Congressman Egay Erice, who was there at the House briefing. Good evening to you, Congressman. Welcome to the Big Story.
Ay, magandang gabi po sa mga ladies ng Big News.
Okay. Tama naman po yung what you pointed out na talagang solid waste management is also a big concern. Kasi baliwala naman ang flood control projects kung walang tamang solid waste management, Congressman.
Not also, kasi I think yan yung pinaka primary cause ng pagbaha sa Metro Manila. Kasi alam mo, we are producing 10,000 tons of garbage every day. 14 million population. So yung dahil doon sa mga local governments ang nag-aakot at because of corruption sa hauling, mga 40% lang talaga yung nakukolekta. Yung 60% niya napupunta sa drainage, napupunta yan sa creeks, sa mga natural waterways. Yung mga river basin, yung malalaking river basin under the control of DPWH, yung Manggahan, yung Pasig River, Marikina, walang problema. Ang problema talaga yung mga tributaries saka yung mga esteros na punong-puno ng basura at burak. Imagine, kung 5,000 a day hindi nakukolekta ang pupunta dyan. So, ibig sabihin, at least 1 million tons of garbage ay natitira dyan sa mga waterways natin. Eh, paano nga aandar ang tubig kung talaga namang yung carrying capacity ng mga natural waterways, wala na. Alam mo, yan yung pinakamalaking problema at isang dahilan kung bakit nasisira yung mga pumping stations natin. Gaya ng nakaraang bagyo, nung pagkatapos ng bagyo, makikita mo na ang nakolekta nilang garbage dun sa pumping station, 600 tons. 600 tons. Okay. Second problem, yung natural waterways natin, masikip na because there are 640,000 plus families living on top and on the side of steros and waterways. At isa pa, makikita mo kung gaano ka sa laula yung solid waste management natin. Alam mo, may study ang mga scientists as report by Bloomberg na yung 37% of plastic waste sa karagatan sa buong mundo galing sa Pilipinas.
Tama kayo, Congressman. But it's not just a matter of collecting the garbage, but really preventing them from getting into landfills. There must be a way to recycle before they get to the sea. Hindi lang basta koleksyon ang pinag-uusapan.
Because of corruption, yung disposal system natin primitive pa rin. Wala pa rin tayong landfill, moderno, wala pa rin tayong mga incineration plant. Dapat naman for a megapolis like Metro Manila with a population of 14 million. Alam mo, in Singapore, 7 million ang population. Kalahati lang ang kolekta nila volume ng garbage, pero meron silang 4 na disposal sites. At kumukolekta sila ng, kung kumpara sa mga trucks na ginagamit natin, 6,000 trucks everyday ang nangongolekta ng basura. Kalahati lang ng ang garbage production natin sa Manila, sa Metro Manila. Tayo, wala pa yata 2,000 trucks. Kaya talagang hindi makokolekta at hindi ma-dispose because of corruption in the LGUs. At alam mo, yung flood management, hindi naman sa DPWH sa Metro Manila. It's under Metro Manila Development Authority. There must be a systemic change in the management of our solid waste dito sa Metro Manila. Kung hindi, talagang lulubog tayo.
Pero Congressman, alam naman natin yung sistema sa garbage collection, talagang naka-bid out yan, no? Naka-farm out siya at hindi ang LGU ang nag-handle. Ano po yung nakikita niyong solusyon sa tagal nyo na rin po sa...
LGU ang nag-handle yan. LGU ang nag-handle yan kasi yung LGU, ang kontrata nila, clean all.
Correct.
So, for example, ang basis nila, 0.74 kilos per person ang napuproduce na garbage. So, 1 million in population, 740 tons a day ang koleksyon. So, binabayaran yan. Certify lang ng LGU, nakuha, kahit hindi nakuha, kahit nandun sa mga quick, binabayaran na yan. So, we spend so much for uncollected garbage.
Yes, but we also don't know after that, no? So that's one problem. After that, kung nakolekta nga, hindi naman natin alam saan dinadala. Or yung pag sinegregate ba natin sa nabubulok, di binubulok, plastic, papel, baka pinagsama lang din sa isang truck, tas tinapon lang din po sa isang butas sa ground at di natin alam kung...
Hindi naman. Yan tinatapon talaga sa San Mateo. Dalawa lang kasi yung landfill natin. At Singapore, 4. Maliit nga sila sa atin. Talagang sabi ko nga, primitive yung disposal system natin. So, hindi ito problema ng flood control. It's a solid waste management. Kaya we are barking on the wrong tree kung sisisihin natin yung flood control projects dito sa problema natin sa Metro Manila.
Ano po yung mga proposals na ipuput forth ninyo ngayon po sa 20th Congress? Meron po ba kayong naiisip na mga panukala?
Yes. Ang una, immediate, linisin lahat. I-dredge lahat ng mga creeks. Pagkatapos, kausapin ng MMDA, lahat ng mga mayors, dapat kolektahin nila pati yung basura sa creek. Kolektahin nila yung basura sa mga drainage. Hindi yung iniiwanan nila yung mga basura sa creek. Dapat yan, magkaroon ng monitoring tayo dyan. Pero medium term, alam mo, ito yung malaking problema ng Metro Manila. We have 17 mayors, independent mayors. Pero ang waterways natin, yung traffic natin, at marami pang ibang dapat pamamahalaan ng isang Metro Manila government, hindi nila kaya pamahalaan dahil they have so much responsibility pero very limited yung kanilang authority. Kaya I'm proposing that meron naman yan nasa konstitusyon natin, yung mga metropolitan government, highly urbanized cities, meron tayo 16 highly urbanized cities. We must elect a governor, we must elect a regional assembly na siyang gagawa ng isang batas para sa lahat na susundin natin lahat. Solid waste management, solid waste disposal, traffic, transportation. Kinakailangan natin ng isang strong government for Metro Manila. Kung hindi, walang mangyayari. Dahil iba-iba yung mga batas bawat local government. Pag nasa Quezon City ka, hindi ka uliin ng color coding.
So you have a bill filed already? Have you a bill filed?
Yes. I filed a bill in the 19th Congress, in the 18th Congress, but now, nawala ako ng 3 years. I-revive ko yan, trying to get the support of even government, yung mga school of government dito sa UP at sa Ateneo de Manila.
Well, Congressman, merong suggestion po si Manila City Mayor Isko Moreno, no? And that is to transfer yung pangangalaga ng mga pumping station, yung mga flood control projects na rin sa LGU na lang para pagdating sa singilan, sa accountability, malinaw kung kanino sisingilin ng taong bayan yung pagbabaha sa kanilang lungsod. Do you agree with that, Congressman?
Hindi po pwede kasi meron namang mga LGUs na walang mga pumping stations. Siyempre, if you are the mayor of Manila, you will protect the interest of Manila. Pero gagamit din naman yung Caloocan, gagamit din yung ibang mga cities. So dapat talaga ito. Kaya nga, yung waterways, flood control, nasa MMDA law, yan turf nila. Dahil ito ay hindi naman pwedeng individual. We are living in one megapolis na kinakailangan may coordinated efforts. At may mga coordinated, merong single policy. Ang problema ngayon, iba-ibang policies kada LGU, kaya nagkakaproblema tayo.
So gusto nyo talaga magkaroon ng Metro Manila Governor ulit, Rep. Egay? Tama po ba yung narinig ko?
Yes, Metro Manila Governor and a Regional Assembly, it is provided in the Constitution na pwedeng gumawa yung para mapapamahalaan natin. Kailangan natin ng strong leader dito sa Metro Manila para sumunod lahat. Kung hindi, magkakanya-kanya yung mga LGUs. Walang mangyayari sa Metro Manila. Pati nga sa zoning lang, hindi nasusunod.
Going back to the hearing, going back to the hearing kanina, may mga nagrereklamo na parang naging budget hearing daw yung hearing with Secretary Bonoan?
Well, isa ako nung nagsabi na hindi naman natin kailangan na we don't want to hear figures. Kasi yan, pag-uusapan naman yan during the hearing ng Appropriations Committee. Kailangan natin pag-usapan dito kasi ang nag-spark nitong hearing na ito, yung comment ni Presidente.
Right.
The President of the Republic of the Philippines insinuated that there is corruption in the flood control.
Yes.
Kaya bumaha. Diba? Pero ako nga, sabi ko nga, maybe siguro dahil sa damdamin ng Pangulo, naawa doon sa mga kababayan natin, hindi naman ito yung talaga. We're missing the point. We're barking on the wrong tree. Baka pag-uusapan, hindi yung flood control. Hindi ko ina-absorb yung mga may problema sa implementation ng flood control. Pero hindi ito yung main reason. Ang main reason, very glaring, napakasalaula, solid waste management ng Metro Manila, at hanggat di natin mariresolve yan, patuloy nalulubog ang Metro Manila.
Congressman, on the part of the contractors, are you also optimistic that they will be held accountable? Pati na rin yung mga regional at district engineers ng DPWH kasi sila raw yung namimili ng contractors pagdating dito sa flood control projects. And based on the hearing earlier, dun talaga nagkakaroon ng korupsyon.
Or if I may add na rin to your question, Pawi, Kong, mga contractors ng basura, isama nyo na rin.
Hindi ba ngayon, kung may narco politics, may garbage politics, yung mga garbage contractors, sila yung nagpo-pondo sa mga kandidato para makuha nila billions of pesos of contracts sa basura.
So better ba kung
pati
LGU na lang mag-handle?
Pati yung downside natin, Mateo. Binabayaran ng MMDA yan. Na yung bawat tapo ng basura, very primitive. Nakita mo, hindi naman talaga yan landfill. Natawag nila landfill. Engineered dump site lang yan. Wala tayong landfill. 50 years na yung plano, hindi na implement.
Okay, are you saying that the corruption is worse in solid waste management than in flood control and infrastructure?
Yes. At kaya ang patunay dyan, simple lang. Simple lang ang patunay dyan.
Ano?
37% ng waste sa buong mundo, sa karagatan ng buong mundo galing sa Pilipinas.
Ano po yung solusyon doon, Kung dapat po ba yung LGU na lang ang mamahala? Kasi nakausap namin nung kasagsagan ng baha, yung Pasig, yung Marikina, nag-invest sila sa sarili nilang mga equipment, pang dredge yung mga river para hindi na po sila aasa sa ibang ahensya, mga national.
Alam mo, yung Pasig, yung Valenzuela, I think yung Nabota, it's more of an exception than a rule. Karamihan ng mga LGUs contracted. At ang nila, clean on. Yan pa isang problema. Kaya, simple lang yan. Kailangan i-account natin. Kung clean all yung kontrata, dapat linisin pati yung estero. Pag nalinakuha yung basura sa estero, dapat hindi bayaran.
One last question or comment, Congressman. I'd like to pick up on what you said na garbage contractors fund candidates in local elections. Can you elaborate and cite an example, be more specific?
Well, billions of, it's a common knowledge. sa mga local government.
Really?
Basta highly urbanized, I'm talking about highly urbanized cities kasi hundreds of millions yung contract sa garbage. Example, sabihin ko sa inyo, for example, 1 million ang population, so 740 tons a day ang production. Pero actual na kukuha, kalahati lang. Pero binabayaran, yung buo. Kasi clean all eh. So, certify lang ng local government na nakuha lahat, kahit na nandun naman sa mga estero, kahit na sa mga kanal naman, bayad na yan.
Ganyan po ba sa Caloocan?
Well, I don't want to go to specific because I'm trying to give a solution to a problem. Sabi ko nga kanina, ano yung unang solusyon? I-dredge natin lahat ng mga esteros, waterways. Pangalawa, i-account natin yung lahat ng local government units sa Metro Manila na dapat makolekta yung mga lumulutang na basura sa mga esteros at waterways ng kanilang jurisdiction. So, hindi nakuha yun, dapat accountable sila kasi bayad yan.
Alright,
Mamamayan.
we thank you, Congressman, pero kailangan you have to also put your money where your mouth is. I mean, give us examples.
Kaya nga, I'm saying na Committee on Public Accounts conduct an investigation.
Sige, abangan na lang namin sa mga hearing sa House. Okay.
Kasi, simple lang yan. Makikita mo yung basura doon sa Manila Bay. Nung pagkatapos ng 600 tons. Saan galing yun? Yung basura. Nakolekta ba yun? Bayad yun. Pero nandun.
Marami pong salamat.
Okay.
And glad you're back in Congress. Congressman Egay Erice.
Thank you.
Now on to another story. Scrap the Pantawid Pamilyang Pilipino program, or 4Ps. Well, that's a suggestion of Senator Erwin Tulfo, despite the program being the flagship of the Department of Social Welfare and Development against poverty. Tulfo used to head the DSWD. Tulfo said it is better to provide the marginalized with capital for livelihood, adding that even 4Ps members he talked to prefer this over monthly cash transfers. To quote Tulfo, he said, masakit din daw kasi sa kanila na marinig ng mga tamad, pabigat at hindi sila nakakatulong sa bansa. If we give them capital, they can use it to start businesses like a sari-sari store, an eatery, or even engage in online selling. But Senator Joel Villanueva rejected the suggestion. He said some of our kababayan still needed the aid offered by 4Ps. His suggestion is to improve the program by injecting actual training to help beneficiaries learn skills for employment.
I'd rather have that, yung cash for work. You give them dignity kasi. May dignity yung isang Pilipino na hindi lamang, alam nyo, sa experience ko, every time I go around and even during relief operations, makikita mo dun sa mga kababayan natin, ayaw naman nila ng relief eh. Sa totoo lang, kung meron silang, ang taas ng pride nila eh, kung gusto nila eh, bigyan sila ng dignity na hindi lang sila pipila at makakakuha ng ayuda or tulong from the government. And
over at the lower house, Mamamayang Liberal Party List Representative Laila De Lima also rejected Tulfo's suggestion. Quoting De Lima, she said, hindi palamunin ang mga benepisyaryo ng 4Ps at hindi limos ang programang ito. De Lima also said it would be detrimental to destroy a program that has good intentions and had achieved clear success. In fact, she said over 1.5 million households have already graduated from poverty under the 4Ps framework. De Lima was the principal author of the Pantawid initiative. For its part, the DSWD admitted there is indeed a lot to fix in the program. They are now in talks with the Senate Committee on Social Justice, Welfare, and Rural Development, chaired by Tulfo himself, to revisit laws about 4Ps.
In other news, the 12 policemen allegedly involved in the disappearance of dozens of sabongeros have been placed under preventive suspension. The suspension ensures that the probe will maintain its integrity, according to National Police Commission Vice Chair and Executive Officer Rafael Calinisan. Calinisan said the commission found the administrative complaint meritorious to warrant the suspension. The policemen are accused of grave misconduct, irregularities in the performance of duty, and conduct unbecoming of officers. The complaint was based on an affidavit filed by self-proclaimed whistleblower Julie Dondon Patidongan, also known as Totoy. Patidongan alleged the PNP officers took part in illegal activities with gaming tycoon Charlie Atong Ang, from whom they received protection money. The accused officers are under restrictive custody in Camp Crame. They will undergo pre-hearing conference on August 14.
Meantime, President Bongbong Marcos will discuss proposals from the Agriculture Department to halt rice importation and raise a tariff on imported rice. Presidential Communications Office Chief Dave Gomez confirmed to reporters that the DA will recommend both moves to protect local farmers as prices of palay continue to drop. Gomez said, and we quote, "The cabinet will discuss this urgent matter with the president in India on the sidelines of his state visit." Mr. Marcos is currently in New Delhi until August 8. The Philippine Council for Agriculture and Fisheries, the DA's advisory body, bats to reinstate the tariff rate of 35% from the current 15%. Marcos slashed levies on imported rice in June 2024 through Executive Order No. 62 to help lower soaring prices of retail rice. The rate, while valid until 2028, is subject to review every 4 months. Farmers are now complaining that local grains are being sold at a measly 8 to 12 pesos per kilo.
And before we say goodbye, our big picture for tonight is related to culture. Are you interested in a different kind of museum date? Well, you can enjoy interactive exhibits at the Space and Time Cube Plus Immersive Art Museum in Pasay. Museum goers will be treated to time travel and cosmic-themed installations. Other features include 3D illusions and holographic displays.
Right, we've run out of time. That's it for the big story this Monday. Thanks so much for watching.
We are One News, all sides, all the time.
We'll be back here tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. Have a good night, everyone.